my certainty in what I'm doing and who I'm talking to and how I'm sharing needed to skyrocket. I got much less apologetic. There's no apologizing. There's just like, here I am, this is what I have to offer you. When you flub, when something goes wrong, when it's not exactly what you wanted to say, you've given me permission to be less perfect. The more being a real person that you can be in all the senses is what creates trust to capture people in a moment in time using the 5 senses. You've captured attention and you've given people an experience of how in command you are of that moment.
Does marketing and content creation ever feel hard and time-consuming? What if it didn't have to be that way?
Join Rob Drummond,
Matthew Bliss,
and me, Pete Daly-Dixon, your ideal companions on the journey to a value-first approach to business growth, here on Help Before You Sell. Izzy meet Matt, Rob, Matt meet Izzy. I think probably the best person to introduce you is you. So why don't you start with that, who you are and what you do and why you're here and you know anything else you want to say, and then we'll just go from there. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'll definitely do this through the lens of help before you sell, because I know that that's why we're here. So, because there's, as you know, Pete, there are so many avenues of rabbit holes we could go down. I'm a multidisciplinary, multi-passionate, filmmaker and an entrepreneur as well. And so much of our crossover, I think, is also like storytelling. So there's so much that we can discuss in all of the facets. But I came up as an actress from a very early age. I was a dancer, then I was an actress. I was working on network television in Australia, and I started working in films. And then I realized what's going on behind the camera. I'm fascinated. I want to know more. So I put myself through film school. And, meanwhile, I was being exposed to, I came out to LA for the first time and really got a taste of what it was to operate in the quote unquote Hollywood industry, which is like the least bit glamorous. Like, it's not glamorous at all. You start operating in the Hollywood system and realize how much of it's all about how you're presenting yourself. It's all about the, bravado of I'm so successful in order to get to be successful. Which is very different to what we're used to in Australia, which is like, don't brag on yourself. Don't talk yourself up. It's like not pleasant. It's not cute. It's not good to, bring how good you are into the conversation.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yes, it's very much tall poppy syndrome. And in America, it's required. So there was this really interesting, learning curve for me of, how do I bridge this gap where it feels organic to me and aligned to me to be able to market myself, talk about myself and share what I have to offer, while also not feeling like I'm, that it's fake, that it's disingenuous. And that was a really interesting early part of my 20s. I came back to Australia. I continued working in film and then eventually moved over to the US for a film as a director and an actress. And that's when I started my business. I started my business in COVID, where in the first iteration, it was really helping creative people make their own films. That was something that I was really good at doing without much resources, making excellent films that were being seen by top festivals and award-winning, but without needing a ton of resources, just using what you have. I think that's always been that's probably one of the key things that I bring to all of the different disciplines that I work under, which is like being resourceful and knowing how to talk about yourself in a way that feels really aligned. So I think that really organically led into where my business took me next, which was realizing how powerful it was to have a business that supported my creative career, seeing that I no longer needed to, say yes to creative jobs that didn't inspire me and excite me, because I had a business that was paying the bills. So I was able to actually say yes or no to things. And that is what inspired me to move into more business style consulting and coaching, where I'm sort of helping creative people build their businesses and scale their businesses and market themselves and talk about themselves and structure things in a way that actually supports a creative career or a full life that doesn't, my cats are going to be wild in the background. helping people do, build their businesses, structure their businesses so that they can also live their life. And I think that has been one of the most incredible journeys for me as a human, as a creative, as an entrepreneur, is like learning how to simplify things. So much of what I do is very rooted in things that you are talking about on this podcast. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because I feel like I have, from your 5-pillar episodes, I feel like I have some unique, offerings around that you didn't quite touch on. So I was excited to have this conversation with you and bring value there. When you ask like who I am, I'm definitely, I'm like many, many things. But ultimately at the root of it, I remember riding this pink tricycle around the perimeter of my grandparents' house when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And no one could stop me. I just wanted to ride around with a stack of Kinko's paper and a file and like a bunch of office stickers, because my dad started businesses and he had all of this, stationary crap around, and I would just put it all in a box, ride around on a pink tricycle, and people would say, "Come, it's lunchtime. Like, no, I'm doing my business. I'm doing my business," was my catchphrase. And they love to remind me of this. They love to remind me of all of the little weird entrepreneurial things that I did when I was a child. Like trying to sell a family newsletter that had very little value. It's like, my Isabella does ballet.
How much did you sell it for?
$1. It was actually my first lesson in effort versus reward, because I spent all of this time making this beautiful newsletter on probably like paint, like
We have an episode coming on print newsletters, so we'll have to compare notes.
Oh, lots to share. Don't sell it for $1.
Well, we did talk about having it being low cost, and I'd say based on how old you are, it may have been distributed before the GST 10% tax came in, so you might be doing all right.
That's so good.
In Australia, by the way.
It was my brother, my dad, and my stepmom, and I went, great, I'm going to make $3. And then my brother was like, I'm not buying one. And then my dad bought 2, and I felt pathetic. And I think I was probably like 9 years old, and I was like, that's the end of that one. And then I decided that it was going to be a garage sale next, and I sold all my toys. So I feel like I've always been entrepreneurial at heart, but only in the last sort of 5 years did I realize and really know, obviously, like what it means to run multi-6-figure business and support people and all of that.
So that business, when you started to help other filmmakers make their films, that was your first proper business, if you like, other than your as an actor. So on reflection, did you help before you sold then, or is that something that's kind of only come out more recently?
I feel like I learned how to nurture through the first couple of years of my business. I think in the beginning, the way that I did it was with the actual way that I launched my business into becoming profitable was in the first couple of months of launching it. I did a referral project where I basically went, I'm doing these I basically did free sessions. And I think I did maybe 15 to 20 free calls. And that was for high ticket one-on-one coaching to help people make their films. And I think I sold like 6 spots in that. And that pushed me off to be able to have, underlying revenue to then be able to pour into nurturing. And then I started the newsletter and the email list and all of that. But I will tell you, like, my expertise certainly lies in, I would say, like, gosh, my expertise is vast, but I would say like marketing, and especially on knowing how to talk about yourself in a public forum. So whether that's newsletter, whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, TikTok, there's so many fucking platforms. Excuse me, I'm Australian and I swear you have to just beat me out.
That's fine.
It's fucking fine, mate. Don't worry about it.
Good. We're in good company.
You can't collaborate with an Aussie and not have swears.
I know. I feel like I always forget to warn people. America's a little bit like weird about the swearing.
We do have a swear jar though, so watch it.
Well, I'll give you my $1 that I made from my newsletter.
There's a lot that you've mentioned there that I'd like to dive into, because not to get to the ground level too quickly.
Let's do it.
But you said that you did 20 one-on-ones to land 6 high-ticket clients and then focused on the marketing and the email list and all that stuff. For some people, at least in guru land, that could be considered backwards. So how did you feel like that was the best move forward, perhaps? And
how did that come to pass?
How did that help you sell? Yeah.
So for me, and it's interesting, this actually comes back to something that you mates were talking about on the pillar episodes, that I love to sell as a way to understand what's resonating. Because honestly, and like most of us, especially people who lean towards coaching or consulting, we know we can help in a range of ways, right? And so it's really about what's going to be most effective for the people that I'm talking to, and what do they want and what do they need. So for me to be able to show up and talk through, because in that sales call, which is, one of the blueprints that we worked on together, I have like a specific kind of format to my sales call, which is similar to, I think, a lot of other things that are out there, but I sort of do it my way. And it really does walk people through this is what it's like to work with me. And I think this is one of the most important things in the help before you sell, law, which is you need to be able to differentiate yourself and position yourself differently. There are a lot of coaches out there. There are a lot of people and consultants and people out there. So in order for people to see you as the one to hire, it's like, what's different? What is your positioning here? And what makes me want to work with you? So I always would focus on that in those sales calls. It was like, well, here's what I'm about. And also I'm bringing, I will say, as my specific situation, I'm bringing a lot of industry credibility and experience to those calls. So starting out, if I had no film experience and no film, like I had never made a film before, why would you trust me helping you make a film? But I will say that I was already someone that people had word of mouth around. And I think that's really helpful for referrals, because people are referring me saying like, this is my friend, but she's also an award-winning filmmaker and she's done X, Y, and Z, and you probably know her from X, Y, and Z. So there's already a built-in credibility. And I think credibility is very important if you're off the bat going to, get clients, I say in air quotes, or like sign people and bring people on. If I were to go again, and I will say I did this because my business fully pivoted. I did like basically 180-degree shift at the end of 2023, early 2024. I'm no longer going to market myself as a film coach. I'm going to fully market myself as a business coach, as a business consultant, as a person that's going to help you talk about your genius. And so I had to really take myself through the process of reteaching and re-educating my audience on who they can expect, what they can expect from me. And that was such a fascinating experience to take myself through. I learned a ton of that. I learned a ton in that. And I also up-leveled my skills as a consultant, because I had to do the things that I'm sharing with very new people in the industry to be able to do, or people who've been in the industry for a while and feel like they don't have the presence or the credibility in their audience's eyes.
What are some of the things you learned specifically in that pivot?
There's an incredible amount that I learned through the process of pivoting my business, through the process of reteaching people. And I'm going to do this, like that weird political thing where you don't actually answer the question, you answer a completely other question. But I think what I focused on and what I continue to focus on, and this sort of seems counterintuitive to the help before you sell, because I think help before you sell is all customer focused, right? It is like all about this person. I'm going to give you everything that you need. But my focus, since I pivoted the business and really leaning into doing the thing that I know I'm good at and like can really help people with and to love and like I'm passionate about, was this sense of I'm here for self-mastery. I'm here to really become the best version I can. And in that pursuit, it didn't need to make sense to my audience immediately. I didn't need my readjustment, my shift to completely make sense to everyone, because I was much more invested in how do I be the best version of this? How do I show up with more simplicity? How do I master my business and embody what it is to master my business and share that with people? And I think that leaning into that and more into that has been the biggest gift. What I have learned from the re-niching, reteaching is, first of all, I think it's much easier to start from scratch. And I think a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't have any experience. So how could people possibly see me as da, 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 da? It's like, oh, you have a clean slate. There's so much that we can build on and do for your audience and for your presence. It's actually harder to reteach people, like reteach people, the algorithm, all of the above, like who you are and how you can help people. And so my certainty of who I am and how I can, and I say certainty as a messaging tool, my certainty in what I'm doing and who I'm talking to and how I'm sharing, needed to skyrocket. Like the way that I was expressing myself needed to skyrocket. I got much less apologetic and I think that's a very feminine thing that like a lot of women need to learn, especially women in business. It's like, there's no apologizing. There's just like, here I am, this is what I have to offer you. And it's really important to have that and learn that skill.
My wife complains that I never apologize for anything, but I stick to my guns.
So good, right? So, I mean, it's like we can learn so much. Women can learn so much from that, honestly.
If you're right. No.
Look, I mean, we could talk about it because
it's also noticeable though when I always think that I have certainty in my message, and then I look back to the stuff I was publishing like 2 years ago, and I couldn't republish it. It's not usable anymore.
Totally. It's so interesting to see previous. I mean, same. I look back on things that I would market for film courses, and I'm like, that course did really well. What? How was I messaging that? So, and again, I think a lot of it is like how you're presenting credibility. But with this, it was really about leaning fully into that certainty, that self-mastery. Like, this is actually not about you needing to buy. This is about me needing to be the best, the truest, the most concise, the clearest, the funnest, like the most me I could possibly be. And then the other part of that is having having the stamina not to need everyone to get it right away and purchase right away, trusting that it's working, but not need it to work instantly. I had clients who I had been working with in film for a while that were already asking me behind the scenes to help them with a business. So that was already kind of happening. And I think something that is very important, especially when with help before you sell, right? You need to be using social proof. You need to be using examples and experiences of other people that you've worked with to share how you've helped them so that other people can see how you can help them. So I'm really leaning into a lot of that social proof. I'm really leaning into a lot of the, previous experiences. And I'm also forgiving my audience because most of them are actors and filmmakers who are like, a business? What is scaling? Why do I care about this? And so, of course, follower count is going to shift. Of course, people will drop off. And a lot of that is like that mental and mindset mastery of going with so much love, like, here's the door. This is what I'm doing now. And I love you and you can go where you need to go. But I'm here to help people build multi-six-figure businesses that support their creative career. And that gets to be perfect. And if that means initially people drop off, that, audiences shift, which it did in the beginning, great. That's awesome. So just really a lot of it is like the mental work of not needing people to get it right away, because ultimately in a pivot, like, you don't always get it right away and you have to feel your way through. So all of those things have been very valuable for me personally, and also very valuable for me as a coach, showing up for my clients who are doing the same thing.
Quite hard to do if you're a recovering people pleaser. And maybe that's part of the issue, is trying to please everyone.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah, I think I dealt with that very much early on in my business. I would definitely call myself a recovered people pleaser. That's like, oh, what if you don't get it? What if you don't like it? What if this upsets you? And wanting to take care of everyone in the room and realizing like that is where businesses go to perish a slow death. Like, if we try and do that. So it's the muscle of being certain in your stance and allowing that to pivot though, right? Like, I think that's what people get a little worried about, putting themselves out there publicly, because like, once I say something, it's permanent. And it's no, you actually are allowed to evolve, and it's important that you do, because it's actually good for the people that your business serves, for them to see you evolve. It's actually such an incredible teaching point for you to embody that evolution, which is many of my clients will say, watching you go from film coaching to business coaching has been such an eye opener for me, because it shows me like, oh, I can be malleable. Like, I don't have to have just one idea and only stick with that. And really it's about value stacking and then having an ultimate message over the top of it. Because I will still bring in film clients. And that's because what I lean into is building a movement with community, right? Having a movement of creative people who want to do things on their own terms, whether that's business, whether that's film. That is the whole kind of overarching message that I get to bring to the table. And in that way, everything, all my multi-hyphenate passions can live under that. So I love teaching movement building to my clients, because I think it really helps them encapsulate their multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate selves under one message that allows a unification of their community to be a part of their journey.
One of the things you just shared there, Izzy, which really resonates with us and our kind of philosophy and what we're trying to get out there, is the fact that it's a long-term game. It's not something that you just do for quick win. But would it be true that you have clients that come to you that do need that quick win in their business? How do you coach them? How do you guide people through that balance of, if you're going to ultimately to be successful in business, you need to play the long game. You need to be thinking about putting education in information education in front of the sale and nurture and whatever. But what about the short term? What about the now?
So I'm always incredibly transparent in my messaging. And I think this is something that everyone needs to really learn how to do in business, is being able to inform, and this would certainly go into the help before you sell realm, is like how you actually informing your audience how they can expect to work with you, how they can expect to feel working with you. So I do a lot of that sort of what I call education, but it's not like the same like education post or education messaging that gets thrown around in like the business coaching world. I'm more talking about how you're educating on how it is to work with you, how you're educating on your way. And so a lot of that comes into my messaging when I'm talking publicly on my podcast, on my, social media feeds. It's really like, I'm here for the person that's in it for the long haul. My marketing is helping you understand that you work with me, we work together at least 6 months, at least a year. Most of my clients work with me 3 years plus. And that client retention, of course, happens because I'm good at what I do and I can really help people and they see results, but also because of the way that I'm positioning myself in the market, which is, I'm not here for, like, here's the door with love. If you're here for a quick win, if you're here to have your creative career and your business take off now, this isn't for you. But I, at the same time, will tell stories and share, social proof around people who've been like, oh my God, I've been working with you for a month and like this incredible thing has happened. So I really like to position those quick wins with, that is not like, this is a happy side effect of simple messaging. We met at the right time in the right place and like, boom, we go, right? So I like to be very clear about that in messaging. And then of course I have, intensives where we are going to have, a 2-week period together. I have like a spunky intensive, I call it, which is like business or film, and it's adaptable. And it's basically where we have a 2-week sprint and we're going to get a bunch of your messaging built. But I'm also very clear, like this, the majesty of this is like in its compounding nature. So you can't just share messaging one time. You have to be able to share it and repeat it. And if you feel like you're bored of yourself because you've repeated yourself so much, you're just getting started. Like you're just starting to make an impression in people's minds.
People do get bored of their own message. I think that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is that it's worth starting closer to the experience and the outcome and the transformation that you provide, and not getting bored of talking about that. And maybe leaning more that way rather than taking a more kind of informational, early awareness approach.
Yeah. And I think that educating, really, like, as much as you can, informing how it is to work with you. I think that's because we all know that you can open ChatGPT and get any answer, right, that you could find on Google, right? It's going to give you a curated answer for you. So yeah, you can go and use ChatGPT as your coach. Like go wild, see what happens. I'm curious, right, to see. But at the same time, like, no, ChatGPT doesn't have the real world experience or the positioning or the vocabulary of a human who has been through these things. And so our job is to really differentiate ourselves by that. I'll be very, very bold about the way that I use educational, in air quotes, educational content talks to you. I wrote this this post yesterday about stagnancy, and really leaning into that, stagnancy creeps up, right? Sometimes you are working on a project and suddenly it's like been a while since you've touched it. And it's like, initially, I went and wrote that post, and it was all about, oh, it's a sneaky little, like, it's just going to creep up on you. And then I looked at it and I realized, like, this is actually about the choice of stagnancy. Stagnancy is a choice, and I'm not going to hold back on that, because I know that's going to rub people the wrong way for me to tell you, like, the reason that your project isn't going is because you chose not to continue. And yet that is why my clients come to me and love me, because they're like, you're just going to be real and we're going to get to the point and move. I'm not going to babysit you.
For the right person, it feels true.
Yeah. For the right person that I love to work with as well. So, because I'm sure have been like, not everyone is a dream client, and I don't have time and energy because I'm working on multiple films. I've got 2 feature films happening right now. I need every client to be a dream client, which means my messaging, my forward-facing messaging, is going to be very specific and very bold. And it will be polarizing, because it will allow the right people to find me and say, oh my God, I'm just so glad I found you.
How often are you posting, and how do you kind of maintain consistency with that?
So I'm an everyday gal. I have systems for it. These are the systems that I teach. So I have messaging and content systems. I love the play and the aesthetic and the like experimentation that I get to feel with Instagram stories. And that's where I do a lot of my selling. So Instagram stories and email are the 2 places that really convert for me. And then I don't do any sales calls. So I move them into, we have conversations in the direct messages of Instagram. We chat, we qualify, basically do the sales call with a few questions in the DMs, and then they convert. And that's always a high ticket, usually, unless I'm doing a low ticket, sort of gives you a little taste of working with me and moves you into, my sort of signature program. It's every day. And I was excited to, I'm not sure if you had seen this, Pete, but because podcasting is such a big thing here, and it's the offering that you have that is so, so valuable. Like, if you're listening to this going, should I do Up Before You Sell? Should I do Activate Your Podcast? It's a hard yes. Listen and do it. Like, I just want to say that. Fucking do it.
Pete, did you pass on the brand envelope of cash that we arranged?
Thank you so much.
I didn't need to, actually. No.
So good. But yeah, I just recently did 50 days, something like 50 something days of daily podcast episodes again, that was a whole process of, I'm obsessed with the self-mastery. How simple can I make this? How easy can I make this? How easy can it be for me to be driving in the car, tap the microphone on my phone, record a podcast, send it to my assistant. She adds intro and outro. We don't do any editing. We upload it, and we did it every single day. And the incredible results from that has been, it's just been so exciting to see the results of it.
Why did you start that process? What goal did you set for yourself for it?
Yeah.
And what have been the results?
So again, it's like, take a shot every time I say it, but really it was, I want to get so good at showing up and talking without an outline, without needing to prep, without X, Y, and Z, and just talking, and get so good at that. I wanted to get so good because speaking engagements are things that I love to do, and there are all these different ways that being able to show up and make a point in 3 to 5 minutes and have that change your day as a listener, is going to be so valuable for the longevity of my career. And everything that I do is for longevity. So again, even when I launch, like I just recently did a pre-launch of a sales course, and everything that I do in business is not like, how much money can I get? Like how many people can I enroll? Like people, it's actually, let's see how good I can do this. Let's see how, and when I say good, I don't mean like I'm the best. I mean like, how good can I feel? Like how much fun can I have? How much, experimentation can I bring to this, and real honest alignment can I bring to this? And like, how can I make it so simple? So that really was my goal. How can I make it so freaking simple for me to show up, record a podcast episode and send it, and then hold my belief, my self-trust, and my knowledge, my absolute awareness that this is impacting people, even though podcasting isn't immediate. It's not going to be like necessarily the same day that someone turns around and be like, I'd like to pay you $10,000, right? That's like not going to happen, right? They need to be nurtured. They're probably going to listen to multiple podcast episodes if they're new to me. They're probably going to go over to my Instagram and start interacting with my content. Like they're going to take a minute, and I'm probably not going to hear from them. And that is very true of scaling businesses. You're not going to know that people are lurking the fuck on your content until they've purchased. So only now, I think we did 50 in the beginning part of the year. And this month actually has been huge. It's like, oh, Izzy, I've been listening. I'm so obsessed. Sending me messages and signing up. So it's like been a delay. It's not been immediate, even though with every episode, it's like, here are the links to buy in the show notes. Here's the links. No one goes to those links to purchase. They want to talk to me first. They'll do that in the DMs. We'll have a couple conversations. And then suddenly that's someone that gets to be in my signature program, doesn't add any time to my calendar. My signature program already runs that way. This is why I like to structure my business with a lot of simplicity. So yeah, not needing the results, I think was a really important part of that experiment.
It sounds like you were doing it first and foremost for yourself, though.
Back to what you said, self-mastery.
Self-mastery. And also because that helps my clients, because that me getting to be so good and so simple at what I do means that my ability to coach you is way better than what it was a month ago, right? The way that I operate now gets to be so much better for you. And then the quality of my work is higher. And it in benefits all involved. I think, more people could really look at like, how do I become so good at this thing? Not just so that yay me, it's like so that the community, so that the movement, so that, we all get to do what we want to do and more of it.
So what can you teach us, the three of us and the listener, in terms of showing up every day in an audio medium and recording your thoughts? Because on one level, it's different from what we teach, because we come at it from a conversation first perspective, that actually for most people, being in conversation with somebody else, whether it's a guest if they're interviewing, or whether it's somebody who's just like there as the first listener, just to help you get your thoughts out of your head and into onto tape, so to speak. But you don't do that. I guess you're having a conversation with the listener. So what can you teach us and the listener about showing up and just, having your phone, a microphone, and recording your thoughts?
So good. And I started, as my podcast really did start from the interview space. It was, I did the first couple. Similarly, your model is good. Everyone go buy. Like, I started the first 3 episodes, I think, of my business, of my podcast, which was at the time film related, was all about me. There were solo episodes telling my story. And then I went into interviews with other people, which really elevated the viewership of the podcast, or listenership of the podcast, because it was, people in the industry that are going to bring an audience. So interviews are so valuable in that way, as well as obviously the value that this human brings to the podcast. But the way that I'm doing it now, where it's just me and I'm talking, what I find is the least edited that you can be, the more relatable that you will come across. And I say that because it was a big lesson. Those first 3 podcast episodes, I re-recorded them so many times, like so many times. I have too many drafts of that, and me being like trying to follow exactly a script. So I was in high school and I'm like, this sounds fucking boring. And then I'd listen to it back and be like, this is really bad. So it was just a lot of self-judgment, a lot of self-talk, and wasting time, like waste of resources. Who had
Not simple, not effective.
Not effective, wasted my time. However, could I have gotten here had I not done that? No. So the lesson of, moving through, you can't, I think this is an Australian book. We're going on a bear hunt. Maybe this is also British. So
yeah, I'm aware of that. I have small kids. I know about these things.
Yeah,
No, it's a British writer.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I feel like many of the good things in Australia are actually from Britain. So, you can't go over, they say in this book, you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you have to go through it, which is just the perfect lesson for life. You can't actually circumvent the lessons that you need to learn. I would say the biggest thing that people could take away from what I have learned from there to, hours and hours and hours spending trying to do one podcast episode to now getting it done in 5 minutes is that I really lent into not stopping the recording. When you flub, when something goes wrong, when it's not exactly what you wanted to say, when a bird smacks into the window in front of you and you scream and you're like, well, I'm so sorry about that, guys, but like them's the rules. Like, can't stop now. And I think that part of that was like me wanting to lean into that self-mastery, not edit. But the other part of that was so valuable for my audience. I had people being like, I just have to say, like, thank you. You've given me permission to be less perfect. And that, I think, has been such a valuable thing for everyone, for me, my community, and everyone is like, the more of the just like being a real person that you can be in all the senses is what creates trust and allows you to be someone who someone would want to invest high ticket in. If they can see me hold myself through that and be like, everything's fine, right? Let's just keep going. I totally forgot what I was about to say. What point was I going to make? I don't fucking know, but here we are and I'm going to figure it out. Oh,
you get better at that with time though, don't you?
You do. And like the only way that you get better at it is by practice. So for me, it's like the best thing that I think people can learn is the practice of it.
How long are these episodes? So are they about 5 minutes? Is it kind of like a slow drip type thing?
I try to make them 5 minutes, but you probably already can tell I waffle. So
I've done enough monologue episodes to know that I'm incapable of doing anything under about 17 minutes.
The amount of times I've started the episode be like, short and sweet one today, guys.
I've also been amazed that the ones that had the best response were the ones that I almost didn't publish.
Same. Yeah. Same.
I'm astounded at what people react to.
Resonate to. Yeah, resonate with. Yeah, I would say 3 minutes to 15 minutes is where my podcast usually sits. And then if it gets longer than that, what I'll do is actually I'll in mid-moment be like, you know what, I'm recognizing this is getting lengthy and I have more to say. So I'm going to stop this and you'll get the next episode tomorrow. In a daily podcast situation, that works really well because, they're like, okay, I'll tune in tomorrow then,
It's like you walk into a building thinking it's a shed and realize actually, shit, there's like 7 layers further up here that we need to climb up.
Yeah, and it does actually speak to something we hear from a lot of our clients, Izzy, that they don't think they've got enough to say. She's not a client yet, but I had a not a straight line conversation with a guest the other week and followed up with her and she said, the reason I haven't started a podcast because I think it's going to take too much time. I don't think I've got enough to say. And I replied and said, well, I've only spoken to you for an hour and a half, 1.5 hours. I said, and just from that, I know you could have a podcast for 1.5 years and still have stuff to say. But how did you know did you have any kind of planning about what you were going to talk about? Because I feel kind of inspired. I like the audio medium and it's, I've got
Pete's going off to record right after this. I can feel it. He's got like the selfie stick ready, and
I am inspired to do it. But if, kind of looking in the mirror, I guess part of me thinks I think I've got enough to say, but I don't know what to say or how to say it.
Do you know? It's when I thought about reopening the podcast again because I hadn't. recorded a podcast episode for maybe 6 or 7 months. I was sort of like on a break. This is so good. It's just when I first started way back when 2020, I think it was like early 2023, I started the podcast. I had that thought of like, oh, I have to think of all of these ideas before I even can consider that I can do a podcast. It's like, what would I even say? The polar opposite experience when I decided I was going to do a daily podcast happened because I actually did not get excited. And I like to have a touch point of, am I going to enjoy this? Like, is this something that I actually want to do? I love podcasting. I love the audio format. So I went, do I actually want to do a daily thing? And then I thought about, well, okay, how else would I do this weekly? It just felt so clunky to do, which is bizarre because most people like weekly sounds like a lot, but the weekly thing meant that I needed to put everything in a box. I needed to have everything really specific, this topic. At least that's how it felt to me. And in a daily situation, I get to be so much more flexible and reflexive with what conversations are going on behind closed doors with my clients, what conversations are going on behind closed doors with my films, what's actually happening with my films. So it's like actually so much to dig into that my audience and my clients are curious about. And I'm finding that I will have similar conversations with people over and over again. And if I can actually have that conversation in a public forum, I'll happily give all of my tools away in a podcast situation, like no sweat. I'll tell you everything. Obviously, like here I am telling you, I think in the first 5 minutes, I told you about my revenue in the first year. I mean, like I'll tell you what you want to know. And so being open to that reflexivity and allowing the topic to deepen is where I got excited, is where I was like, yes, a daily podcast feels exciting and like, and that there's a more that can be discussed because there always is. I mean, even in this conversation, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about that. There's so much that we could go into that would be valuable for your audience because it's just like, I don't want to scratch the surface anymore. I want to have those in-depth conversations. And, there's just no end. There's no end of things to discuss.
Do you ever revisit the old episodes? I've done enough daily activity to know that I think it's great to do, and it's a great way to kind of inspect your thoughts and allow your thinking to develop. But it makes it hard to kind of reflect and reuse older stuff because you're so focused on creating tomorrow's podcast or newsletter or whatever.
I'm a bit bad at that.
Because there's probably gold in the archive. And
totally. I'll have my assistant, I try and get my assistant to go and just like pull things out because I'll riff and I literally at the end of an episode, I'll just like, think I blacked out. I don't know what we talked about. I don't know what I said, and then people will send me messages and say, oh my God, this quote. And I'm like, that sounds really good. Is that nice? So yeah, I mean, look, that's something that I could probably do more of, but I don't do it as much.
You in terms of going deeper, you mentioned right at the top of the conversation that when you listen to the pillar episodes, what did you say that there was a piece that I wanted to bring into it, which I did, which is that the help piece, in my perspective, needs to come with that side of positioning, of like what is it, what's your USP in traditional business terms, and not just like what's unique about you in the market, but what's actually unique about the way that you see things and the way that the boundaries that you hold. Honestly, like everything is a selling point. Your boundaries are a selling point. Your what you don't do with people is a selling point. And all of that comes into positioning. And I say selling point, but it's also so helpful for your people, for your clients, for your audience to see you in that space, to see you in like, here's why I don't do free sales calls. Like that could be something that I could do a podcast episode or a piece of content around, like, here's why I actually actively don't do that. And you get to extract so much value from seeing me in that space, seeing me in that. And then you starting to realize like, and one of the biggest things for me in my whole business was going through traditional business coaching school of thought and like, investing in traditional business, strategies and tools and things that people normally use. And then realizing all that shit doesn't work for me. I need to do this my way. And so
all of that is positioning. All of that gets to also help because I'm going to say, well, here it is. Here's what I do. Or here's how I choose to teach and I choose to employ, X 3 tools in my business to learn X, Y, and Z. But to start that with that positioning of like, here's why that's not for me or my people. And like, if that's for you with love, go do that. But like, this is the way that we do that I get to do things here right now. And that positioning is really important for people to actually trust you and invest in you. And it's also really important to actually help them before you sell.
I think that as a takeaway for me that I've noticed is it's about getting the vibration right that you're putting out into the world.
Yeah.
And getting that right first, and then everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
The publishing rhythm, whether it's daily or whatever. And I think people do under publish or don't communicate as often as they should. And I've said on this show before that I think that people tend to assume that because I wouldn't want to receive a daily email, that everyone wouldn't want to receive a daily podcast or a daily email. And it just isn't the case. Like it's our own, I think our own media biases get in the way of it.
Absolutely.
But I think having that, knowing who you are and having that foundation and allowing that to evolve, as you said, and maybe using your ongoing production to refine that vibration.
Definitely. That's 100% the takeaway. It is so valuable for your community, especially in a customer support situation. If that's, if your business is customer facing, you're supporting people, you're helping people, you're serving people, for them to be able to see you as someone who evolves, as someone who owns who they are and owns what they have to offer. I mean, it's what builds trust, and you need trust in order to have people buy from you. I mean, it's just so, so important. And so you need to trust yourself. That self-trust is just as important as an audience's trust. And so for you, showing up and talking about what you have to offer every day and holding the space of, I don't need you to get it. I don't need you to buy. Me selling every day isn't about you buying every day. Me selling every day is like, with love, here's what I have to offer, and allowing you to go on your process. But I'm holding stoic in the fact that I know that this is really valuable and it's for the right person. I always, Pete, we talked about this all the time. I'm obsessed with the power of one mentality, which is like, I'm not here, my business has basically been compounded into, what it is, in terms of revenue, because I focused on one thing at a time. The power of one client, talking to one person, being that specific in my messaging, being that, really thinking like, what one person would love this and resonate with this. And I think that is the best thing that you can do in order to not water down or try and go viral or try and appeal to everyone, but instead appeal to that one person that you can support, because people see themselves in so many more than one person, obviously see themselves in that blueprint.
Yeah.
How about if there's more than one person in the business? Because I think that obviously makes a lot of sense when your personal brand and your business brand is kind of the same. But
yeah,
I was thinking, like, even for us, there's 3 of us in the business. Like, how much do you lean into kind of individual personalities, I guess?
In a business situation where there's multiple operators or business owners, I would be really leaning into a unifying movement message. What is the kind of core message or movement of the business itself? And then where do you individually uniquely find yourself in that?
Like, why are we in collaboration and pulling on that?
Yeah, exactly. And why are you in this collaboration? Like, what makes you want to create this movement, create this, community of people? Because the individual is what creates the collective. So I would be looking at like, what's that overall messaging, and then where do you uniquely fall into that? Because the most important thing that I think all of you guys will get to do is differentiate yourself in the market by the fact that you have 3 very unique, viewpoints on things. So having that unifying message is going to be really, really important. I think that's true for all businesses, but especially of businesses with multiple owners that are, vocal in the business.
You mentioned something right at the very top of the conversation, Izzy, storytelling, and you can't really have an interview with an award-winning actress and filmmaker and not talk about story. What does storytelling mean to you? And I know you have a particular style of storytelling that moment in time, and you gave us an example of that with right at the very beginning on that pink tricycle. So just talk to us about us and the listener about storytelling and the importance of story and how you go about telling stories in your nurture and your education.
So good. I love talking storytelling. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I use storytelling everywhere, and I think everyone should. It's how people will relate. It's universal. It's just the best way. If I come at this from a filmmaker's perspective in the beginning, because I've been in many pitch meetings where you slowly see their eyes kind of glaze over, and you're like, "Who? Check him out." And so it's like, okay, what story can I tell right now? What is the thing that is going to get us back? And story is so grounding. It is something that, especially when we do it in the moment in time, framework, which is not new, right? Like not new at all, not mine, but something that I use and talk about a lot. Grounding in a moment, being able to say, the air was warm. I was wearing, I always, there's a
Come on, tell that story.
I realized I was actually, I was doing a client's pitch. So I was like, so because I've been teaching people to storytell, since the beginning of my business, and in fact before that, but one of my first courses was helping people crowdfund for their films, and the best way to do that, to start the pitch, is not like, here's the log line of my film. It's actually, so I have to tell you about this time that I was walking home and a rat ran up my leg, and I was carrying all these groceries and I couldn't get it off my body, and I was like flailing about, right? Suddenly you're in this moment of drama with me. You're seeing the rat, like you're seeing, you're having that experience. This is fully made up. Where did a rat come from? I don't know, but my brain somewhere. So the point is, like, to capture people in a moment in time using the five senses. You can utilize even two or three of the five senses in a moment in time story. You've captured attention, and you've given people an experience of how in command you are of that moment. So it really, whether it's for crowdfunding and trying to get money for a film and pitching a project, whether it's for that, whether it's for telling people about how you can help them and utilizing storytelling, moment in time storytelling to do that, whether it's having a general conversation with someone that you wish to be, that's in the industry, that you wish to be connected to you and close to, right? Like I went to Sundance Film Festival at the beginning of the year for a film that I'm pitching, and that's how I made that's what I went in with all the time, to a room of people I did not know. I was there with my producer. My producer was very, very sick and couldn't come with me. So I was literally like, hello, like walking into a room of people who are, working at the top of the game in the industry. And most people don't know who the fuck I am. And I'm like introducing myself, talking to people, and using storytelling all the time. So I use it every day. I use it multiple times.
It's a leap of faith in that environment, because you don't know how it's going to land.
Oh yeah.
So it's almost an act of bravery in the moment, because it's not the thing that you're expected to say.
Definitely. And also it's just such a breath of fresh air. Like, because most people are like, oh, what can I get from you? What can I get from, we'll walk into a room like that and say, who can I meet to get something from? Whereas when you're telling a story, you're inherently adding value.
So how did that look in let's kind of be specific and not vague. What give us an example of going into one of the places you went to at Sundance?
So, that's a great question. Okay, well, the first thing that comes into my mind, which I know you're gonna love, Pete, is that I basically talked my way into a closed panel that was full, and many people had waited in line, which I did not know. But I walked to the side of the security door and I told a story, which was that a friend was waiting for me inside and had saved me a seat. So that was a fib, not really a story. But I got into that room.
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's what
I say.
And honestly, there's something powerful about being alone in those environments. I actually think it would have gone many things would have gone very differently if my producer was standing right next to me. But because I was alone, there was this like, whoa, fuck it kind of vibe. So I told that story and I got into that room and it was, I can't remember what I said, but I walked into this panel and it was one of the bigger feature films that was premiering at Sundance this year. And it's so funny that I walked in and it was basically a line of people standing up at the back. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just stand up at the back. Not realizing that everyone at the back that I was standing up with were the producers and executive producers and like sales agents of this massive feature film. Exactly the people that I would like to meet and know thank you for my feature film. So I'm like there, and I just will come out of the blue with it. I'll just, oh, this reminds me of like, and I'll just talk. And sometimes people probably would think that I've lost a few marbles because that's what happens. But,
I think it's about not taking yourself too seriously as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And not filtering yourself too much. But that advice needs to be told to the right people because some people don't filter themselves enough, right? And like in those situations, like read the room, know when you just got to shut up. Like it's not your time to talk. But for me, I really needed to learn that in those environments, in professional environments where, not to put people on a pedestal. Also, ultimately, that's the thing, whether it's looking at clients that you want to hire you, whether you're looking at people who you want to support you in your business or people who have been in the industry for a long period of time that you want to mentor you, whatever, like no, not putting people on a pedestal and being able to meet them with just a run of the mill, like everyday story is actually how people started to I went from being quite an obscure person, random kind of ring-in person at Sundance Film Festival to having people introduce me as like, oh, that's Izzy. She's that sex cult thriller director. You're making that sex cult film, right? And it's like, I became known as the sex cult thriller director because of the way that I didn't take myself too seriously. And I was using storytelling. They would be like, tell us about your film. And my pitch is always like, well, I got to tell you this thing first. I got to tell you the story. And that I use storytelling in every aspect, every day, in every way, in email copy, messaging, talking to people, walking outside. Like it's just such an important skill to have, especially with that 5 senses moment in time story. Not just like, I was feeling bad and then I felt better, but instead, what were you doing when you were feeling bad? What did that look like? What was your view? What was the air on your skin? What did that feel like? Like, how can you give us a real-time experience of what you were what you were feeling? Because what I know as a filmmaker is empathy is creative. Film is the one thing that can create empathy in people, in my opinion, art-wise. Like it just so activates, this ability to empathize with someone who has a completely different life experience to you. And that I believe is because of the 5 sense experience, the moment in time experience that you get watching someone go through their life and experience what they're experiencing. So I take that everywhere, and I just think it's such an important tool.
How long did it take you to realize who you were stood with at the back, and what did you do?
This phase.
Just go straight into another story. That's the correct thing to do.
Exactly. I think it was like talking and and so what about you? I executive produced this film. Oh, and you? Oh, the director. Oh, hi. It was like exactly that moment, it was very cinematic, exactly that moment where it was like, okay, now we're going to be quiet because the panel is starting. So it was like a very quick, it was maybe 2 minutes, if that, of standing with them, talking, and then realizing who they were. Well, after exchanging, like, oh, let's stay connected. Like, so, it just doesn't fucking matter who they are. If you connect, it's like, that's it. That's all you need to do.
Well, I've got one eye on the time, as always. And as always, being in conversation with you, Izzy, could quite easily go on and on because it's fascinating, insightful, interesting, deep, all those things. Rob, Matt, do you have any last questions? Or Izzy, do you have any last thing that you want to leave our listener in terms of helping before they sell, or just being the best version of themselves that you're such a great example of?
I think get into the process of mastering yourself, of allowing yourself to evolve, but being certain about who you are in this very moment. The more that you can do that and tell stories that share that part of you, the better, and just keep going. Like, don't need it to be anything in the immediate sense. We're all so addicted to immediate external validation that it kind of robs so many people of their ability to scale a business and actually see it. Too many people quit before it works. And so I just think, like, hold the line and trust yourself, and trust that who you're talking to is listening and they want to hear from you and they're just waiting for the right moment. All things that you guys have already shared on the podcast in the 5 pillars. And I just think you guys are geniuses, and that, people listening to this who are thinking about their own podcast, it is definitely the right move.
Thanks, Izzy.
Thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much.
Appreciate you.
It's amazing. Every time we have a new guest on Help Before You Sell, my to-do list of things to work on like exponentially increases. So thanks, Izzy. Thanks for
You're
that.
welcome, Rob. Yeah, that's what I'm here. I'm just here to give homework.
Yeah, not least of which himself.
Because it's not, it's not Pete that does all the work behind the scenes. So it's but no, it's no. I've got a lot to do. So yeah, just some great insights.
Amazing.
Thanks, Izzy.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. This is great.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Help Before You Sell, sponsored by Activate Your Podcast. To activate your podcast and help the people who most need you and your services, head to activateyourpodcast.com/help. If you found this episode helpful, please also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And remember, help more to sell more. See you next time.